Hello ladies and gentlemen, and once again thank you very much for joining us on this most recent update here on February regarding travel safe advice to Thailand. We're joined today with a special guest who's currently in Bangkok, Aaron Leboutillier, who will give a little bit more of an introduction to himself, but in brief, Aaron has significant experience in the world of security, particularly people risk investigations, and certainly has a very good network of connections and so on in and around Thailand. So we're going to speak to him today about some of the issues throughout February and March relative to travellers and expatriates in Thailand, and certainly focusing on Bangkok. So Aaron, once again I've probably understated your skills and experience, and certainly kudos to this stage. Just want to give us a little bit of an introduction or an overview of your own background.
Sure. Well, I think actually you overstated my my credibility. Out of Thailand for 20 years. The last 3 years I've been running a security company. That was after an 8-year tenure in Singapore. At this stage, I'm working closely with various police stations around Bangkok, offering assistance to tourists and expats that get into trouble and need help with translation. So I'm an assistant to the translation service for several police stations. So that gives me an incredible insight as to the current scams and security concerns that travellers face when they're here.
Okay, excellent. And for all of those attending, Aaron is integral or a key part of one of our service provider network, and certainly our where we're getting the street talk from. So that's what we're going to touch upon today. So the scope of this session, we're going to talk about the major concerns affecting travellers and expatriates in and around Bangkok at the moment, that is for this time frame, February leading into March. What's on the horizon that people need to be aware of over the next few weeks, and general safety and security advice in and around Bangkok that Aaron and certainly his crew can certainly give us insight into. So Aaron, jumping in, boots and all, what are the 3, maybe 4 top concerns for travellers and expats in and around Bangkok at the moment? I noticed that you were talking about some of the scams that have been going on. There's rumours of more political unrest and demonstrations, and quite a lot of stuff that you would expect in a big, vibrant city like Bangkok. But if it's possible, can you distill it down to sort of the top 3 or 4 things that we need to be aware of?
Okay. Well, on a political front, I don't think the average tourist has anything to worry about on that front, although we'll talk about that later on in this webinar. I think one of the biggest concerns tourists have are scams and violence that's happening along Sukhumvit, one of the main areas that tourists seem to head to in Bangkok. At the moment, the biggest scam, although it's a kind of semi-scam, is the Bangkok Administration Office have planted various officers from Sukhumvit Soi 3 all the way down to kind of Soi 33. What they do is they sit at a table with a load of advertising behind, which is in Thai, and they wait for predominantly tourists to flick cigarette butts, throw litter, and anything else. Once they're spotted, they're dragged over to this desk where they're fined 2,000 baht, which is a hell of a fine for flicking a cigarette butt. And I call it a semi-scam because littering in any city is illegal, and I'm pleased that they're doing something about it. But the problem is the fine should be around 200 baht. And what they're doing is they're focusing on tourists and then intimidating them with a uniform, intimidating them that they are police officers when they're not. They have no power of arrest. They have power to issue a fine, but because they're tourists, they know they're paying 2,000 baht. Now, there's been a lot of complaints at the police stations. There was a big feature in the Bangkok Post about it. And 2 days ago, I went down to Soi 3, and I spent an hour and a half sitting on the side of the road eating my noodle soup, and they stopped 9 tourists in an hour and a half. They fined each one 2,000 baht. They issued a receipt. Everything was above board, but the issue is it should be 200. They're also intimidating tourists by asking them to open their bags, to check their passports, And I've been told by the relevant authorities that they have absolutely no power to search through your bag or to ask for your passport. And I spoke to some of the staff, and they were visibly distressed by it. And it's a bit of an issue here at the moment. So that's why I call it a semi-scam.
And these sorts of scams, Aaron, they're quite perennial, aren't they? They adapt and they morph, a bit like these online sort of Nigerian email scams, that they sort of maintain the same theme, but they sometimes mix and match in terms of who they're targeting or what the excuse is. But as you said, they're a great little revenue raiser for them, aren't they?
They are fantastic, and they crop up in certain high traffic areas. Then there's some bad publicity vis-a-vis the Bangkok Post doing a big article on them. So they disappear for a while. But then, like all scams, they lay low and then they pop up again. So yeah, at the moment, if you're a tourist in Bangkok and you see someone in a green uniform approach you and, tell you that you're being fined, then actually what I've been told is you have to tell them, look, yeah, sure, I've committed an offence. I threw my cigarette butt on the floor. It's a disgusting habit. I'm sorry. I only have 200 baht in my wallet. And if you only have 200 baht in your wallet, then that's what the fine is. They have no power to then take you to the police station or do anything else with you.
Okay.
So that's the advice that I'd give tourists, except the fact that you've done something wrong and you shouldn't be flicking cigarette butts in a country that you're visiting. But at the same time, accept the fact that you have to pay something.
Yeah,
and 200 baht.
That's a very valid point too. Just because you're a tourist doesn't mean that you're bulletproof and you can do as you please.
Exactly. That doesn't mean that you're prey to take money off and to scam.
Yeah, and this is something not exclusive to Bangkok. There's been a number of, we've been reporting over the last couple of weeks, the jet ski scam in Phuket has raised its head again. For those familiar or not familiar, the jet ski theme is, you rent a jet ski which may or may not be damaged, and again, you've got to pay an outrageous, if not ludicrous, price, and it leaves a bad taste in everyone's mouth, because these so-called fraudsters really do damage the image and the enjoyment of travel to Thailand, do they not?
I mean, I'm kind of in a mixed feeling about this particular scam, because I do think tourists coming over here and dropping litter all over the place isn't a good thing. But at the same time, when you walk down Sukhumvit and see rats running across your feet and piles of garbage outside every shop house and locals flicking cigarette butts and rubbish everywhere, but then you're singled out, that is a little wrong.
Yeah, no, exactly. So what else is sort of perennially an issue at the moment?
The other thing that's cropped up over the last couple of months, and it seems to be building, especially at night time, muggings and violence at ATM machines. Some of the streets along Sukhumvit, especially around Nana Plaza area, people are going to ATMs 11, 12 o'clock at night, taking money out. Normally at that time, the demographic is going to be male and drunk, which means 2 or 3 Thai guys waiting, watching. As soon as the money comes out, smack you across the back of the head and run off with the money. And there were 2 last week on Soi 4 and 3. And I think in January there were several cases. And I see no reason why they should suddenly stop, because they realize it's a good revenue stream. And there is a steady supply of semi-drunk men taking money out of cash points late at night. So people need to be wary of that one.
Okay, and so what would be, obviously this is a bit of a concern, what would be some of your sort of tips or advice on how to, people who look like a victim typically end up becoming a victim, and being drunk and drawing money out in all hours of the night is an obvious means of reducing it. I
mean, as you know only too well, reducing the risk for security attacks and violence, you need to plan a little bit ahead. So, I mean, all I'd say to people is, if you're going out for a night in Bangkok, then, be smart enough to take out the amount of cash that you're going to need for the evening, in the afternoon. I know it doesn't always work like that, but, if you start walking around dark streets in Bangkok at midnight, taking out 10, 20,000 baht out of an ATM machine, and you get attacked, then, although it's not nice, you kind of put yourself in the situation. So I would just say to people, plan ahead a little bit.
Yep. Okay. Excellent. Now I'll throw one on you. You mentioned it just before in terms of the political landscape. You know, there's a lot of media reports. There's a lot of enthusiasm when it comes to these particular issues of different coloured shirts on different days of the week. But I think you hit the nail on the head there with the opening introductions. How much of this is really a concern to your average traveller and your average person enjoying Bangkok?
Well, about a month ago, there was a bomb accidentally detonated in Nonthaburi. It was accidentally detonated by the guy that was making it. It was in a part of Bangkok that tourists rarely visit because there's nothing there. And as a result of that, I read some travel advisories from some embassies and companies telling people not to come to Bangkok because of one isolated incident that happened in the outskirts of Bangkok. So I think people tend to overreact. Sure, last year there was a lot of violence in Bangkok and people died. The people that died were people that were in